Hello everyone, my name is Emmanuel Mumuni. I belong to Busy Speakers Toastmasters Club, the Great Busy Speakers Toastmasters Club, and I was lucky enough to join Toastmasters in 2017. I have always been looking out for a community where I could express myself and practice my communication skills. And I never really knew about Toastmasters until I watched a video by Warren Buffett. And then he mentioned very clearly that, you know what, if you have difficulty with communication, join Toastmasters. And I was like, what is Toastmasters? Do I need wine? Do I need a beer to toast? And then I looked it up, and it was a really amazing community. And I found out that we had a chapter in Ghana as well, which was really interesting for me. So I've always been this kid in the classroom that knew the answer and never really raised my hand up because of, fear to express myself and fear to be wrong. And so I grew up having this fear of speaking in front of people. And I always knew that there was something in me that needed to come out, something that I needed to express to the benefit of the world. And so over time, it really affected my life in many ways, career-wise, being the person that had all the answers and never really expressed it. And so at some point, I realized that if I didn't take an action to improve this, it was going to affect me and affect my potential. So this is where I started off looking online, what can I do to improve my skills? And I've attended so many workshops, and a 2-day or 3-day workshop never really cuts it, right? I need constant practice, and Toastmasters is what offered me that opportunity. It was in the boardroom, being the person that would do the presentation, being the person that would ask the very strategic questions in the boardroom, but also within social circles, within family meetings, within friends, meetups with friends. Your communication is just a notch higher and people understand you better. I think the purpose of communication is to make people understand what you have in your mind and how to express that. And sometimes if you don't have that skill, what is in your mind is not what you say, and so people do not understand you. But when you get to a point where everything in your mind, you're able to say it in a way that people understand and appreciate what you're saying, that was a real fulfilling moment for me to understand that I had something to share. It was in two ways. One was observation from people, seeing improvements in my life, and they're like, what did you do? People knew me to be the shy person who wouldn't speak in public, and then all of a sudden I'm taking up responsibility and speaking up and speaking so well, and people are like, how did you do that? I want to also have that. So it was like a confirmation of validation of the effort I have put in the past or in the last couple of weeks. And then it was also my own self-assessment, that just looking at me and the things that I was doing at work, I was really happy because I was making impact. People could notice it, people were appreciating it. And it's just a better life to live because you have so much to share, so much to give to people around you. And that was like a big validation for me why I used to spend that money to renew my Toastmaster subscription. I think leadership may have been the stronger force of why I joined Toastmasters, because I always believe that everyone is a leader, but you need to bring something out of you to show the world. And so joining Toastmasters, it gives you that practical sense of how to become a leader. So you get to speak in front of people, which is a leadership trait. You need to be able to inspire your colleagues and your followers. And then you also need to be able to have a vision for the group that you are leading. So I learned to start by being a vice president public relations. So you need to have a vision. How do we want to take public relations forward? And then later I became vice president education, and then later become the president. And all of that was like a progression of leadership, of vision, of leading people and putting people first. Because if you're a leader in Toastmasters, you know that you are the one coming first and setting up everything. You are the one, putting together an agenda and caring about everything and ensuring that when people come to meetings, the experience is rich. There's a lot of background to that. And it's a deviation from the leadership that I learned when I was growing up, because leadership growing up was, you get the best, you are the person every other person serves, and people are even afraid of you when you walk into a room. You are the person that everyone fears. But Toastmasters introduces you to another leadership where you put the people first. You understand the needs of the people and work towards achieving the goals that they seek. And this was like the holy grail for me. The growth, leadership, but also excellence. I think it will definitely come from the amazing Papa Akes. Yeah, Papa Akes is not a primary member of our club, but he used to visit a lot. And I think he was a mentor to our club as well. And he would often come in with his imposing personality, and he's talking about leadership and why we should all rise up to that call. And he spoke about the responsibility in leadership, taking up responsibility, because we're at a point looking for new leaders for our club. And he came in to speak about how we should take up responsibility as club members and really not only focus on the communication side, but also on the leadership side. Then he gives examples of, world leaders that had taken responsibility. They didn't have to take those responsibilities, but they went out of their way to assume those roles. And those were some of the moments that changed the world. And it was so inspiring that immediately after, I went to sign up to contest for Vice President Education. And I keep remembering that. And I know great speakers would never remember most of their speeches, but the people that it impacts, they will never forget about it. I'll talk about Benjamin Akapo because he was my mentor. And he's doing amazing things now on TV. But it's just the control that he has over the English language. I remember when he's a grammarian during our meetings, then everybody is like careful because he's going to point out the smallest and the biggest mistakes that you have in your speeches. But he's such a deep thinker. It comes off very easy for him, but he tells you about the practice that he goes through to be able to deliver such speeches. And he's one of the people that I really admire. He influenced me. I remember my very first speech, my icebreaker. I had actually written down the whole speech. I read online that you are allowed to read, especially your icebreaker. And then he came to the meeting and took it from me and he said, you are not going to read from it. And then I went on to deliver the amazing speech. I won the best speaker of the day. And so he really influenced me. I would also talk about who else can I? Yeah, I've spoken about Papa Akes already, but also Susie, Dr. Susie Pupulampo. She didn't really mentor me, we've not really engaged closely, but just looking at her journey, it's really inspiring. I was in the meeting where she delivered her icebreaker. I don't forget this. And everybody was like, yeah, this is her first speech. And she was clearly nervous, but she went through a really amazing speech. And to see where she's come from to where she is now, super speaker. She's also led the division at many levels. And it's really inspiring what she's done with her career and her time at Toastmasters. I would always say that there's something special in every single person. And until you find a way to express it, you would never really have that deep fulfillment in you. So it's a life responsibility for us to find our voice. And the only way you find your voice is improve your communication skills to be able to express yourself. And you notice that when you're nervous, when you are really scared about speaking, you never really communicate exactly what you wish to communicate. And then you go back home and you're like, I should have said this, I should have said this. There's a certain level of growth that you cannot go above if you cannot really communicate. And we've had so many colleagues who have, at one point or the other, gotten to a point in their career where they're like, you know what, if I don't improve my communication skills now, I'm not going any higher. And so it's either you choose now or you choose 10 years from now. But I guarantee that one day you think about Toastmasters.